Okay, in this video we're going to keep looking at um, looping slash iteration slash repeating. We've looked at the while loop and the do while loop, and our third construct is called a for loop. That's for, F-O-R, for. Like you're either for it or against it. And what the for loop does is, if we go back to our previous model of the while loop where we're incrementing and we're wanting to track a count, this kind of construct's not really necessary. And here's, not that it's necessary, it's kind of dirty in the sense that you have to create a variable for this loop to work, and this variable stays in scope after the loop. So if we come down here, count is still a variable, right? So if we had a very long function or program, this variable count is just forever floating around, and it will have only been good for this while loop. What the for loop does, the for loop keeps that cleaned up so that your count variable only exists while the loop is repeating. Once the loop has exited, that variable disappears from memory and that space gets cleared up. Now, it seems a little overkill for something as small as one number, but in a lot of programs and in a lot of servers, you're competing for memory space, and of course nowadays memory is exceptionally cheaper than it used to be. But decades ago it was very expensive, and it was a very valid concern. Why are we taking up memory for no reason? So I'm going to convert this while loop into a for loop. So this is how it works. Notice we have count declared here. So first thing I'm going to do is get rid of that declaration. And instead of while, I'm going to say for int count equals 1. So what I've done is I've taken this declaration out of the main body of the program, and it is now in these parentheses. And then just like the while loop, this is the expression you're evaluating. And then the third statement is your incrementing statement. So I can take this guy and put it up there. And I think actually I don't put a, yeah. So you have a semicolon on the first two, but not the third. So it won't like that third semicolon. Now if you watch, oops, sorry. This is going to operate in the exact same manner as before, where you have a string saying ah, and a count variable that's iterating. All the way until count equals 100. And now it exits. So that's the for loop. Now one other shortcut here is there's another way to accomplish incrementing an integer, and it's a shortcut if you're only doing it up by 1. I mean, sometimes you may want to increment by 2s or 3s or 4s or 5s, whatever, then you need this kind of statement. But if you're just doing, like, say, counting, so you're only incrementing 1 at a time, there's a shorthand notation called ++ count that you can do. You can also say count ++. The difference between the two is if you do ++ count, whatever statement it's in, it's going to increment the variable first and then evaluate the rest of whatever expression it's in. If you do count ++, it uses the current value during all the evaluation, and then once everything is completed, then it increments. In a for loop, it doesn't matter which one you use, but if you're using it in the body of a method, that could come back to get you. Now, so there's also shortcuts for expressions like this. Instead of saying x equals x plus you can just say x plus equals and that does the same thing. So again, we'll run this, and once again you'll see that our code works in exactly the same way. We're incrementing Our count is slowly increasing by 1 up until the point when count equals 100, and then the loop exits. So that's the for loop.